Alright, in this simple tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a very basic rigid body wall and then use a rigid body sphere to destroy it. And this is a very simple tutorial, but it's just meant to teach the extreme basics of rigid body physics in Blender. And just in case you're curious, this is what it looks like when it's rendered. View animation, and there you go. And I will take you all the way through the rendering process too. Alright, now let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I am using Blender 2.93.2, but of course it's going to be pretty much the same regardless of which version of Blender, as long as it's 2.8 and newer. Alright, now we don't want to get rid of the default cube. I'm going to press 1 to go in front side view, and then 5 to go into orthographic view. And we want to make this cube a little bit smaller. Make it half the size actually. So press S for scale and then 0.5, enter. And then since we are going to be dealing with physics objects, press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Now let's go ahead and add a floor. Add, mesh, and then plane. Now this is going to be our floor, and we're just going to scale this up kind of an arbitrarily large amount. It really doesn't matter. But since we did change the size of it, and it's going to be a physics object, after we do change the size, we're going to press Ctrl A and then apply the scale. Now press N on the keyboard to bring out the side panel. You can press N, bring it in and out. And we need to move this cube up so that the bottom edge of this is at this one, at the top of the floor, I guess you could say. So press G for grab, Z for the Z axis, and then 0.5 to move it up. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and shift this over on the X axis, on the negative X axis, out this way by, let's say, 5 meters. So grab X minus 5, enter. And the reason why I'm doing that is because once we duplicate this object, we want it to still be somewhat centered. Alright. So now let's go ahead and add a little bit of a bevel to this object, just to make it look a little bit better. Go over here to the modifiers tab, add modifier, and then choose bevel. Now the default bevel is 0.1. That's a little bit too much. I'm going to set this to 0.05, and I'm going to increase the number of segments to 2, just to make it just a little bit smoother. And now I'm going to press apply. Now we are going to eventually make this into a physics object as well, but we're not going to do that until after we've duplicated it using the array modifier. So what we want to do with the cube selected, click on the modifiers tab, add modifier, and then choose array. Now we want to go ahead and duplicate this, let's say 10 times. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 10 and make it 11 actually. Is that centered? Yeah. 11 looks like it's pretty centered. Alright. Now we want to click on the add modifiers and then choose array. Now we want to do the same thing again, but on the Z axis. So change where it says X down here, change that to 0, and then on the Z axis change that to 1. Alright, now we're going to bump this up right here so that it's about that much. Alright, now starting at the top, click apply, and then on this one click apply. Now all of these is basically one object, so we need to separate them into all individual objects. So press Control P, pardon me, that's wrong. So what we need to do is press tab to go into edit mode, and then press P, and then separate by loose parts. Alright, so now they're all separated. Press tab to exit edit mode. But see, the problem is, like if I was to select this one, the origin point is way over here, so we need to go ahead and fix the origin point. So press B for box select to make sure all of them are selected, and then left click to drag so that all of them are selected, and then press object, set origin to geometry. Alright, so now it put the origin point for each individual one in its own geometrical location. Alright, now with all these selected, this one right here is the one we're changing the physics properties on. So we come over here to the physics tab, click on rigid body, and we can pretty much keep all these the same, except we do want to change this to box. Alright, now come up here to object, come down here to rigid body, and then come over here to copy from active. And what we're doing, we're basically telling all of these over here to take on the same properties or same rigid body settings as this one. So it's object, rigid body, and then copy from active. Now each individual one, like if I click on this one, it has the same properties. See what I mean? Alright, now let's go ahead and give the floor some rigid body properties. Click on rigid body, change it from active to passive, because passive will be basically making it a static object, where an active means gravity is going to affect it. Alright, now let's go ahead and press 3 to go on the side view. Alright, now let's set up an object. Well, actually, we need to do one more thing. Let's go ahead and press 1 to go back into front side view, and then just go ahead and select this top object over here. And we need to go down here to dynamics, click on deactivation, and then start deactivate it. And the reason why we're doing this is because we don't want these to be unstable. We don't want these to start falling apart until an object hits the wall. Alright, that's basically all we're telling it to do at this point. Now press B for box select, select all of these, and then once again come up here to object, rigid body, copy from active, and we just basically copied that change we made to the rest of them also. Alright, now press press 3 to go on the side view, and we need to add an object to basically throw at this. Add mesh, and we're going to use a sphere. Why not? Press G for grab and bring it out to about right here, and now I'm going to press 3, I'm going to press 1, and the reason why I'm doing that is just to make sure it's kind of lined up. Make sure it's actually, you know, in line with the center. So go back to 3 to side view. Alright, now with this rigid body sphere selected, or with this sphere selected, we need to turn it into a rigid body. So click rigid body, keep it set to active, but click on dynamic. And we're going to make this weigh a little bit more too. Bump it up to 5. Alright, now change this from convex hull to sphere. And what we need to do at this point is on this button right next to animate it, click that, because we're adding an animated keyframe, because we need to use keyframes to accelerate this object towards the wall, and then use keyframes to release the object, and then the velocity will just carry on through it like it's being thrown, kind of like you're throwing it with your hand. Alright, so come over here to, let's say, about frame 30, and then press G for grab, and then just move that to about right here. Well, I need to back up just a little bit. Press Control Z. Alright, now I forgot to keyframe the location of this. So now press I to keyframe that location. Now go to about frame 30. And then press G for grab and bring it to about right here. And then keyframe this location. Now, if we go back to frame 1, we already have this, the animated portion, keyframed. Now, at frame 15, we're going to uncheck this and then keyframe it once again. That way, between frame 1 and 15, the sphere is being moved strictly by keyframes. But once it gets to frame 15, the animated portion turns off, and then gravity takes over, and then it's just at frame 15, it's like your hand releases the ball. Alright, now one more thing, let's go over here to the rigid body world settings. The sub steps per frame, I'm going to set that to, I'm going to set it to 30, and I'm going to go ahead and click File, Save, and I'm just going to give it a generic name, in my case Untitled, but name it whatever you want, and click on Cache, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and click Bake. Now we'll go through and bake really fast because this is an extremely simple animation. Now if we was to click play, there you go. Simple enough. Now obviously this isn't some kind of masterpiece or anything, it's just teaching you the basics of how to use the rigid body system. And it looks kind of interesting still, nonetheless. Alright, now right there's about the end. Let me scroll through one frame at a time. Alright, right there, 180. 180 is about right. So I'm going to set this to the end frame to 180. And now let's set up the camera. Let's select the camera. And right now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in with the mouse wheel and just kind of move this so that the camera view area is set up in a way that makes sense. Alright, now I'm going to come over here to click on the View tab, click Camera to View, and now I'm going to right click on the floor. And the reason why I'm right clicking on the floor is just that way whenever I go to move the camera move the camera while looking through it, it kind of rotates around the floor. It just makes it a little bit simpler. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Zoom Out with the mouse wheel. Now I think I like it from that side a little bit better. Alright, now I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I have my camera set up about the location I want. I may zoom in just a little bit more. Alright, now I'm going to just go, using the arrow keys, just go in one frame at a time. And I'm just doing that so that we're not rendering all these frames where nothing's changing. Alright, so I'm going to start right here. I'm going to change this to 14. Alright, and now I'm just going to scroll through using the arrow keys until I get to a good starting point, which is basically the 180, what I sort of calculated before. Alright, now let's go back to the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and click File, Save, since we're getting close to wanting to render. Now on this floor, I'm going to go ahead and give that a simple material, just kind of a dark gray, and then I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard, and actually I'm going to press 3. I'm going to select one of these cubes, and I'm going to give it a material. I'm going to give it just I'm just going to give it a dark red. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and give the rest of them the same material. And to do that, I'm just going to press B for box select, and then go down like that, left click to drag around all of those so that all of them are selected, and then press Control L, and then link materials. Alright, so now all of them are red. I'll go back into camera view. Now we do have a light in the scene, but I'm gonna delete this light because we don't want to use it. I'm gonna add an HDRI image for the light and use it as an environment texture. If you go to HDRI Haven website, I will put a link to that in the description of this video. You can download a bunch of HDRIs for free. Alright, now I'm going to come up here to the World tab, click on the color icon right here, or the color button, and then choose Environment Texture. And of course you need to download an HDRI from HDRI Haven or some other source. But I already have one. I have a whole bunch of them on my system. So I'm just going to use one that I've used many times in the past. And that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to kind of scroll through until I get to about right here, and then I'm just going to do a test render. Alright, I'll go up here to Edit, Preferences, and go to System. I'm going to turn on both GPUs. Going to downsize that, and I'm going to click Render Image. Now, I do need to go ahead and add a material to this sphere, which I've neglected to do. So I'm going to right click on this sphere, and I'm going to make this look kind of like a copper color. So I'm going to turn the metallic all the way up, and then kind of give this a brownish, light brownish, yellowish type color. And the roughness probably set to 0.5 is about right. I'm going to try one more test render, but I also want to add a shade smooth to that sphere. And now I'm going to do one more test render, see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks fine. Now let's that's probably about right. Now let's go back to 3D view. I'm going to press 7 to go on the top side view, so we're looking down on it, and I'm going to select the camera. Now click on the camera icon here, click on viewport display, and we want to turn on limits. And the reason why we're turning on limits, that way we can see what we're focusing at, because we're going to turn on depth of field. This point right here with this line is the focus point. So we're going to adjust the length of this focus point using this scale so that it's right there in the center of the wall. And then we're going to set this to probably 0.5. Alright, we're going to do a test render, see if that's too much depth of field or not enough. So I'm going to click render one more time. Probably we need just a hair more depth of field. So we'll make this just a little bit smaller number, 0.4. And then try it one more time, render image. And what I'm basically doing is just trying to get the background just out of focus just a little bit while all of this is in focus. Maybe set this to 0.2. That may be a little too much. I'm not 100% sure. Test render it one more time. Well, actually that looks about right. So 0.2 with the camera at this distance. But you know, use your own artistic and interpretation for all of this, you know, for the most part. Alright, now I'm going to come up here to the printer icon. I'm going to set an output, and I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it wall, and double click on it and click accept. That way it's putting all the output images into that folder. And For the most part, I use JPEG. Some people use PNG, but JPEG's fine as long as you turn the quality up to 100%. And I use placeholders generally because I usually render with multiple GPUs with multiple instances of Blender. But if you only have one GPU or you're only using one instance of Blender, placeholders really will make no difference for you. But generally, you do want to uncheck overwrite so you don't accidentally start re-rendering things you've already rendered if you've already rendered part of it and then stopped. Alright, at this point I'm going to come up here and I'm going to uncheck the 3070 because I'm going to use multiple instances. So I'm going to X that and then file, save, and then render animation. Now I'm going to slide this over here, zoom out just a little bit, and I'm going to open up my second instance of Blender, and hopefully it won't take too long because I got so many add-ons installed that it takes a while to open sometimes. Going to go ahead and open up the same project, come up here to edit, preferences, go to system, and I'm going to turn off the 3060 and turn on the 3070, X, and then resize this one so that it's right beside it. Alright, now I'm going to click render on this one, and basically these are going to be rendering every other frame. This is going to skip the frame that this is rendering, and this is going to skip the frame that this one rendered. So basically it's rendering extra fast is all it really comes down to. But anyway, if you have any questions as far as how to do this, or any questions about the rigid body settings or render settings, anything in general, go ahead and leave a comment below and I will do my best to try to answer. And I guess that's it. Later, people.